Okay, so today we're going to talk about the quadratic formula and the discriminant. So we can solve quadratic functions using several different methods, and we've looked at multiple methods. Which method would you use to solve the problem below? Pause the video, take a minute, find the solution using one of the methods we've already used. Okay, so the key concept for today is the quadratic formula. So in order to use the quadratic formula, our equation has to be in standard form. And the formula is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So for this first equation, this is the same equation that was on the previous page, so we should already know the solutions for this. Now we're going to find those solutions again using the formula. So first it needs to be in standard form, so I'm going to take this 2 and I need to move it over. So that means I need to subtract the 2 from both sides. So I get 3x squared minus 4x minus 2 is equal to 0. And now I just need to label a, b, and c. So a is 3, b is negative 4, and c is negative 2. And then I'm plugging these into the formula. Okay, so I plug in the opposite of negative 4 plus or minus the square root of negative 4 squared minus 4 times 3 times 2. Oh, sorry, negative 2. All over 2 times 3. And now we're just simplifying. So the opposite of negative 4, these negatives will cancel out to make this a positive 4, plus or minus the square root of negative 4 squared is 16. And then negative 4 times 3 times negative 2 will make this a positive 24 over 2 times 3, which is 6. So I am going to move this for now, get rid of this. Okay, and I'm just going to write the rest of my work up here. So x is going to be equal to 4 plus or minus the square root of 40 over 6. So if we want an exact answer, we would take our square root and simplify it. If we want approximate answers, we will do 4 plus the square root of 40 over 6 and 4 minus the square root of 40 over 6. So our x's will be approximately 1.72 and negative 0.39. Okay, so second example of this, remember we are using the formula. I need to take my equation and make sure it's in standard form. So right now I need to move the 4 over to the left side. So I'm going to do that by subtracting 4. So I end up with 2x squared minus x minus 4 is equal to 0. And so my a, b, and c are 2, negative 1, and negative 4. And then I'm just plugging them into my formula. So x is going to be equal to negative, or the opposite of negative 1, plus or minus the square root of negative 1 squared minus 4 times 2 times negative 4. All over 2 times 2. Okay, so again, simplifying, we get 1 plus or minus 1 squared gives me 1. Negative 4 times 2 times negative 4 is going to give me a positive 32. All over 2 times 2, which is 4. Okay, so we are going to have 1 plus or minus the square root of 33 over 4. So our two answers will be x is equal to 1 plus the square root of 33 over 4. And x is equal to 1 minus the square root of 33 over 4. So again, we are going to have to do approximations here. So our answers will be approximately 1.69 and negative 1.19. Okay, so next we're going to talk about the discriminant. The discriminant of a quadratic equation is what is under the square root symbol in our quadratic formula. The b squared minus 4ac, that is the discriminant. And it tells us some things about our equation, about the roots. So if our discriminant ends up to be a positive number, so we do our quadratic formula, or we just do the b squared minus 4ac, we plug it in, we get a positive number for the discriminant. That means that our parabola crosses our x-axis at 2 points. It has 2 real roots. If the discriminant is 0, that means that our parabola crosses the x-axis at 1 point. So it looks like this. It touches the x-axis at one single point. And then finally, if the discriminant is negative, then that means that our parabola does not touch the x-axis at all. It's somewhere above or below our x-axis, and there are no real roots. So finding the discriminant. What is the number of real solutions of negative 2x squared minus 3x plus 5? So negative 2 is going to be A, negative 3 is B, and C is going to be equal to 5. And we plug that into b squared minus 4ac. So when we plug this in, we get negative 3 squared minus 4 times negative 2 times 5. And then we just simplify this to figure out what it's equal to. So negative 3 squared is 9. And then negative 4 times negative 2 times 5, just multiplying these three, we end up with a positive 40. So that is going to be equal to, 49, which is a positive number. So since the discriminant is positive, this has 2 real solutions. Okay, for the second example, what is the number of real solutions of negative x squared plus 14x equals 49? So we need to figure out what a, b, and c are. In order to do that, the quadratic equation has to be in standard form, which means we're going to have to take the 49 and move it to the opposite side. So we will subtract 49 from both sides, and we end up with negative x squared plus 14x minus 49 equals 0. So my a is going to be equal to negative 1 because of the negative in front of the x squared, negative 1. B is 14. And c is negative 49. So I plug those into b squared minus 4ac. This is the discriminant. So it's going to be 14 squared minus 4 times negative 1 times negative 49. So that ends up being 196. And then negative 4 times negative 1 times negative 49 is going to end up giving us a minus 196. So our discriminant ends up being equal to 0, and if our discriminant is 0, that means that we have 1 real solution. So here are our U-try problems for tonight. So for the first set, you're using the quadratic formula to solve these 4 problems. So don't forget that's x equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So your first number is going to be a, second number is going to be b, and your constant is c. Plug those numbers in, see what you get. And then for the second ones, you're finding the discriminant. So remember, the discriminant is just b squared minus 4ac. If you stayed until the end of the video and you come in tomorrow and say, Miss Moser, math is awesome, then I will give you 2 extra credit points. And don't tell anybody else, please. Thank you.